Here with Drew McKissick. He is our current SC GOP Chair. And again, just to remind everyone, this is for a lot of new GOP members and delegates that are in the party. They're new. They don't necessarily know the folks running or even the current chair. So we want you all to have a chance to meet everyone. Drew, so briefly for the audience, give us a quick bio.
Sure.
What is your political backgrounds, beliefs, and aspirations?
Well, got involved in the Republican Party back in the late 80s, actually before I got into college. And got active in college Republicans, young Republicans, and then in the local Republican Party. And primarily to me, being involved in the party was a way to, as I saw it, have more of an impact on the things that I care about. And I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, and a Republican in that order, as Vice President Pence has said. And to me, there's so many issues that I care about, things that I wanted to make a difference on, that I couldn't be a single issue person. So I found if I could get involved in the Republican Party, it would give me an outlet to actually have an impact on the party, on candidates that would get elected to office, and then also help other folks like myself do the same thing. So over the years, worked with candidates and campaigns in the local party organization. Worked with grassroots lobbying groups, grassroots political groups like Christian Coalition, like Right to Life, and some other outfits. And then sometimes worked with the party, and then sometimes worked with the groups, and then back with the party again. So kind of giving me an interesting perspective, sort of being on the outside, throwing rocks at the building, so to speak, and then you work in the building for a while and you're catching the rocks. And you kind of see the problem from both perspectives. And I think the biggest problem that we all have is apathy. Apathy is our problem. Apathy, especially on the part of people who think like we do, on the part of other conservatives, to actually be involved in the system and have an impact. Folks have said, or wondered why sometimes we have so many elected officials that, they would disagree with so vehemently. And in many cases, it's because of too few people actually showing up and getting involved. And that's been one of the things that's been, really important to me, is how can I teach, how can I help other folks who are conservative just like I am actually know how to have an impact on the political system. Because to me, it's one thing to care and be passionate. It's another thing to know how to do something about what you care about. Because when people don't, then they get frustrated really easily, or they get burnt out and they go home, and then it's hard to get them back into the system. So a little bit of knowledge goes a long way, how to be effective. And so I've actually written several books about that over the years. Grassroots political action series, how to create a winning campaign plan, other things like that give a little bit of knowledge to people who actually care, and then help them make a difference.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. So this is going to be a two-part question. Of course, it's kind of a silly question for you because it says, why are you running? I think you just answered that. But again, it's why are you running, and what would you like to accomplish if elected going forward? Because you've accomplished some things that I know that you'll give a description of. But
Right. Well, look, why to run again? Well, I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy being able to, again, have an impact on the things that I care about, being able to help other people do the same thing. Going forward, and actually I wrote an article about this for Newsmax probably about almost 2 months ago at this point, because after the election I got so many calls from reporters that invariably started with the same question. It was, well, where does the Republican Party go from here? And it was all basically in reference to what happened nationally versus what happened here in South Carolina. And my point was, well, as far as I'm concerned, especially here in South Carolina, we continue to do what we've been doing. It works. It worked here. We had the best election result for Republicans here in South Carolina in 140 years. We, won a presidential race by delivering more votes for Donald Trump than for any other presidential candidate in the history of South Carolina. Winning a U.S. Senate race by double digits and winning back the 1st Congressional District from Joe Cunningham, all while Democrats were spending over $150 million against us here in South Carolina. that plus the 3 state Senate seats we picked up, 2 state House seats, 5 sheriff's races around the state, a multitude of county council races and other local offices all up and down the ballot. The biggest thing that I think there's a tale of the tape for the fact that the party's heading in the right direction is the straight ticket voting. So, 2016 was the first time that Republicans beat Democrats on straight ticket voting in South Carolina. We beat them by 2.5 points. In 2016, first time Donald Trump was on the ballot. 2 years later, in 2018, we beat them by 8 points statewide. In this past election, November of 2020, we beat them by 17 points on straight ticket voting all across South Carolina. And that's more and more of the newer folks who have come into the party because of President Trump, because of our conservative message over the years, who have begun to think of themselves now as Republicans. So instead of just voting for a Republican and then maybe splitting their ticket, they're pushing the straight ticket Republican button. That's an indicator that we've been moving in the right direction, that the way forward is to continue to go the way we've been going with our conservative message. It's working, it's reaching people, it's getting conservative Democrats and independents over into our party, and it's working its way further and further down the ballot now in terms of our success. Within this recent party reorganization process that we're going through now, we have doubled 100% bigger turnout than we had for the same process 2 years ago. And that is, to me, a testimony to many of the volunteers that got involved in 2020, getting them to come over now and be involved in the party itself. Politics is about manpower. I say many times politics is spelled P-E-O-P-L-E. If you got people, you can have a campaign, you can have a political party, you can win, you can enact policies that you care about, but you have to have people. And this is a good indicator of success in 2022 by having so many new folks involved in the process.
That's a good thing. All right. So do you have any experience in the business and financial accountability and specifically fundraising? Because we know that that's a big part of this job.
Well, only 4 years worth.
Yeah.
So, obviously, there are, as I like to say, 3 fundamentals to politics at any level, whether it is a school board race or a presidential race, or whether it's organizing a political party. And that is organization or manpower, as we just talked about people.
Right.
Secondly is our message, what we say about what we believe in a way that will convince other people to be involved with us. And the third is fundraising, raising the money to make the first 2 things possible. And in the last 4 years, we've broken fundraising records here in South Carolina. We've got the largest grassroots donor program, actually, I think, of any other party in the country right now. We're either first or second, I forget which. With the Elephant Club, we've grown that from 13 members to 890 members in the last 3.5 years. Wow. But then also when it comes to just major donor fundraising, what we had come into the party in the last election cycle, we've shattered fundraising records. We've added about 4,000 new donors via direct mail in the last couple of years. And again, people are responding to our message, and they've been responding to our candidates and folks who want to participate and grow the party. Again, fundraising is what makes those other 2 things possible, and it's where I spend probably about half my time.
Yeah, it's an important function of this position, definitely.
Yeah.
So, as far as the creed, Republicans live by the creed. So
Sure.
Tell us, does that inspire you, and if so, how?
Sure. Well, again, it's for lack of a better way to put it, it's the shorthand version of what our party actually stands for. Versus, say, the long version being our platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those principles are encapsulated in our creed. We don't choose to be common people. We want to stand for personal responsibility and freedom. Sure. And in a way that attracts other people to our cause too. It's I think it's a creed that attracts other people to our cause, and it inspires me in the sense that we've got incredible principles that are enshrined in our platform that are very, very important to all of us. And it inspires us to work and to organize and to carry those things forward into our party. Because if people don't do what they're not inspired about, and we've got a message that does inspire people. And when folks come to our meeting and they hear the creed for the first time, they'll say, that's really good. That's me. That's what I believe in. It's like, yeah, that's what we do. When we did some modifications to the platform a couple of years ago, we took what was a 40-page document and we condensed it into sort of like what you see with the pocket constitutions. We created what we call a pocket platform, kept all of our issue positions, but modified the rhetoric and shortened some of it in a sense that it makes it approachable for the average person to be able to read and understand what our party actually stands for, so they can compare it to what they believe. And it's been very, very successful because, again, people get inspired by message, and that's encapsulated in our platform and in our creed, and that encourages them to then do the organizational work, or maybe even giving money towards that work. So again, it's one of the three fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. So would you like to change anything about the state GOP's organization now and how it's run, maybe to improve or better? I mean, we all look to improve.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, every year when we have our first state committee meeting, we set out goals for the year. So we've been goal-driven for the last 4 years since I've been in here. So what are we doing, in terms of fundraising? What are we doing in terms of communications and messaging? What are we doing in terms of manpower, finding new volunteers, setting those goals going forward? And then when we come back every 3 months, when we have our quarterly meetings, we measure ourselves against those goals. So, and in every measure for the last 4 years, we've been up over each quarter as we're going forward in terms of fundraising, in terms of, adding names to our email list so we can communicate to more people. In terms of social media contacts and outreach and other media work that we do, and then in terms of organization, and as I was just pointing out in this cycle, doubling effectively what we had 2 years ago. Those were all goals that we had from this past January. Actually, our goal for reorg in this cycle was to increase it by at least 50%, and we've blown through that goal. In terms of fundraising, for instance, with our Elephant Club membership, we want to get to 1,000 members by the end of this year. We're at about 890 right now. Setting those goals going forward, again, around those three central tenets of political success, if you will: fundraising, manpower, and then messaging. That's what we build our goals around in each cycle. So to me, again, the way forward is doing more of what we've been doing. We just do more of it, because if we have more manpower, more money, and we get our message out there, we'll be more politically successful. Because our job as a party is to be a campaign committee. Legally, that's what we are. We are a campaign committee. Our job is to put together those fundamentals to then be ready to win the next campaign. And for us right now, once we get past the state convention, that's working forward to November of 2022. What can we do to put the things in place that we need in order to win? Right. Period.
Gotcha. So what are your top conservative legislative priorities?
Right.
And how do you envision working with state legislators to push forward a more conservative agenda in South Carolina?
Sure. So again, those are things that we lay out at our first meeting of the year. We set out legislative priorities for the year. A couple of things along those lines. One is some election reform items that we've been pushing. We didn't have the problems here in South Carolina that they had in other states, obviously, like Georgia, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin, Arizona. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't potentially have those problems. Democrats came and filed the lawsuits here that they filed in other states. Within hours of getting or seeing that lawsuit, we had our attorneys intervene in that case, or those cases. It was 2 federal cases and 1 state case. And we fought them all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we won. We stopped them from changing the laws here in South Carolina before Election Day, which was key to keep them from. They had what I call sort of the buffet list of things that make fraud easier that they were trying to do here in South Carolina, whether it was ballot harvesting or drop boxes for ballots that would be unattended to, you name it. We stopped all of that. But again, that doesn't mean that our current laws couldn't potentially be abused in a future election cycle. So, for example, mail-in absentee ballots. So currently we have 17 excuses that you can use to use a mail-in absentee ballot in South Carolina. We would like to see that effectively those 17 excuses amount to no excuse. Potentially anybody could fit in one of those 17 excuses. We would like to see that reduced to about 5. You know, if you are military or overseas or stationed elsewhere in the country, you're a student, you're permanently, you know, or in a medical facility and incapacitated, you know, those type things. And otherwise push people toward voting, you know, absentee in person over a certain period of time where they have to show that photo ID. That limits drastically the potential for fraud and abuse with mail-in absentee ballots. So we've got a bill that will push that forward. We also have a bill that was sponsored by Speaker Lucas, as a matter of fact, that passed the House, is sitting in the Senate now, which would mandate that all state election commissions around the state have to apply election law and election regulations the same. I know that sounds profound, but right now they don't have to. You know, so what's done in Georgetown can be different than what's done in Pickens. That creates a definite potential legal problem. Say if we were in an extremely close statewide campaign, we could have lawsuits flying all over the state about things being done different in various counties. This bill would fix that. It would mandate standardization across the state and put the county election commissions under the authority of the state election commission. So it's a big change. We want to see that get past the Senate. That's on our list of legislative priorities. And then there are some other bills we're pushing for and have been for a good number of years now. Partisan voter registration in South Carolina, which would then allow for closed primaries. For the past two election cycles, or primaries rather, the June primary in 2018 and the June primary in 2020, we put partisan voter registration as a question on our primary ballot. You know, we put that on there for a reason, because we wanted our members of the legislature to see how many primary voters actually want closed primaries, want people to be able to register by party. And in each case, it was about 85% of our voters around the state. You know, and if they don't move on it anytime soon, I'll put it on the ballot again in 2022. We have several bills that would accomplish that. It depends on which way they want to go. But my philosophy on that is I want to see any of them pass, because I think the way we do it now, where any Tom, Dick, and Harry can walk in and help pick our candidate, is the worst way that we can pick candidates. You know, the most important thing that a political party does is nominate candidates. And when you allow anybody to walk in the door and do that for you, it diminishes the value of your party and your vote in a primary. And then there are several other smaller issues beyond that, like getting rid of fusion ticket voting, where, you know, people can run as a nominee for multiple parties at the same time. We think that should go. Some laws to tighten up how often they have to purge voter rolls, you know, and so forth in each county. So those are all on our legislative priority list. Again, we pass those. Our state executive committee, we put those forward at the first meeting of the year, January, February, and then we work forward with members of the legislature, trying to find sponsors, attending the subcommittee meetings, and pushing those things forward. So, you know, we made some progress on some bills so far. Not done yet. Of course, you know, legislative session last 2 years, so we're working to get some things pushed through the House right now so we can come back and at least get them through the Senate before the next election next year.
Wow, that sounds like busy work to me.
It's a good bit of work.
Yes, I believe so. So the state GOP party as a whole has seen quite a bit of division this year. What's your plan to pull the party together and move forward if you win the GOP chair seat again?
Well, again, it comes back to issues. You know, issues are what motivate people. You know, what motivates you to get involved in the campaign, or to get involved in the political party, or to vote for someone, or to give them a contribution, or whatever. Inevitably, it comes down to issues, and that comes back to messaging and our principles and so forth. So, you know, first and foremost, there's Democrats, what they're up to, and what we're doing to try to oppose what they're up to, whether it's nationally and here in South Carolina. Of course, here we have a Republican majority, pushing people around the issues, many of which I just talked about, and some other issues. You know, we've had the heartbeat bill that we were able to get passed in record time this year because of that larger majority we now have in the Senate and in the House. Second Amendment related legislation that's passed the House and is now pending in the Senate. We send out action alerts on a regular basis around many of those bills. And then so one, it gets our grassroots engaged in contacting their legislators, and two, it lets our legislators see that the party is behind pushing these bills and trying to get them passed. So continuing to do that, keep folks motivated around issues that we have in common. You know, in my opinion, you know, we've got probably the most conservative platform we've had since I've been involved in the state Republican Party, you know, over 30 years. I think if we were to, you know, poll all of the Republicans in the state, we would find that almost all of them agree on 90% of what's in our platform. At any given time, though, they might disagree over which one is their top priority, and it depends on what issue is hitting them in the face on a daily basis. Is it their last tax bill, or is it the potholes they were running over on the way to work in the morning, or whatever? And those priorities sort of change from day to day, I know. But it's the issues that we have in common that motivate us. So to me, is keeping an issue-focused party will keep folks together, focused on the common goal of electing candidates who will take those issues and try to enact them into public policy.
Yeah. And so, in conclusion, what would you like people to know about you that would convince them to vote for you at the convention, all the new delegates this May the 15th? Right.
Well, you've got a lot of interesting things, and I use the word interesting charitably, that have been said by some folks about me, about other folks in leadership in the party. I just put out an endorsement list, actually just last night, from folks in local leadership who are endorsing my campaign. Basically, out of 46 counties, it is about 44 county party chairmen, 44 or so state committee members, and a bunch of former chairs and committee members as well. You don't get that kind of grassroots support from people who are in leadership unless they know you, they know the job you've done, they trust you, and they know the truth about you. A lot of what has been said by some folks running right now and some of the folks who are supporting some of the people that are running right now has no basis in fact, and never has. For example, there is some folks who've been saying that I gave to an organization, which I did, called Rampart PAC about 4 years ago. Rampart PAC was a political action committee that was started to support Christian conservative candidates. A friend of mine was running for Congress at the time. I made a donation to the PAC, and so they could continue to help his campaign. About a year and a half ago, that PAC went out of business. So they filed with the FEC to dissolve the PAC and so forth, and they let their domain name expire because nobody was there to keep renewing the domain. They're out of business, so they don't need the domain. So someone in China buys the domain, along with about 1,300 other domains at the time, I believe, and pointed the domain towards Chinese pornography. So someone now who's running against me comes along and says, well, look, Drew gave money to this PAC, and this PAC's website now points to Chinese pornography. Ipso facto, Drew supports Chinese pornography, and has said that in multiple places in social media posts. Other people supporting his campaign have done that. Incredibly disingenuous and dishonest at best. My wife was really happy to find that, and have posted numbers of other comments and so forth, even on her Instagram account. Things that are just very scurrilous and not even worthy of mentioning in a public forum, quite frankly. But look, this is the kind of stuff I signed up for, and that's okay. I mean, I care about the things that I care about and actually being successful at it going forward. If people want to play those kind of games, that's on them, because people eventually see them for what they are. Right now you've got a candidate running who has never lived a day in South Carolina in his life until about 3 months ago, who's been spreading some of that innuendo, and quite frankly, who gave money to Barack Obama, gave tens of thousands of dollars to candidates who were endorsed by Planned Parenthood in Georgia, and who hadn't voted in a Republican primary since 2004, and stood up before TV cameras in December discouraging Georgia Republicans from turning out and voting in the Georgia Senate runoffs. And over 500,000 Republicans stayed home and didn't turn out in those runoffs in Georgia, and now Chuck Schumer's running the United States Senate. That is not a definition of someone that, I think, and I think a lot of other Republicans think, should be in charge of the #1 Republican campaign operation in South Carolina. It sounds a little bit more like, someone who would be a, quote, Republican in name only at best, and maybe a Democrat plant at worst. But people can be the judge of that. That's fine, and I'll stand by the judgment of the delegates, because, again, as I pointed out, I've got support from folks all across the state who've known me for over 30 years, who have worked with me in many cases for over 30 years in conservative grassroots politics. They know my record. They know what I've done. and they support my campaign. And on top of all that, of course, there is the endorsement actually twice over from President Donald Trump, and also who endorsed me the second time the day after my latest opponent jumped into the race, which I think speaks volumes. So I'll just leave that with them and let them speak on my behalf.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for letting me come here
Sure.
and interview. And I know this is after hours and after 5, we're all off work, and I just wanted to
Happy
thank
to do
you because, again, a lot of people that are new to the party, they
Sure.
don't know any of the candidates and they don't know you. And I
Right.
think it's important they get to know every single one of them.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
I hope everyone has a great evening, and we will talk to you soon.
Take care.